Då ska vi gå igång med nästa programpunkt och vi går in på lite grann vårt internationella del av programmet. Där vi har föreläsare från Tyskland och Norge. Och vi kommer att börja med att välkomna upp Ingmar Helmke som är Senior Investment Manager på Aquila Capital. Som är en tysk investerare som investerar fantastiskt mycket i nordisk vindkraft för närvarande. Så varmt välkommen, warmly welcome to Ingmar, who will hold his presentation in English. So we're welcome to Eolus and their annual seminar.
Perfect, thank you. Hi. Johan, thanks for the warm welcome. I feel honored to be given the presentation, the possibility to present the investor's view of on the Nordic market. Apologies for me speaking English to you. I'm aware that I do have a Swedish name. Everyone expects me to speak some Swedish, but except for skål and tack, actually, I don't know what was the concept of my parents behind my name, but I like it. Yeah, Aquila Capital, we are, just to give you to shed some light about us, because I feel that sometimes when you're reading in the newspapers that the financial investor has bought an asset and so on and so forth, that this is always pretty abstract. So I will try to give you a bit, or shed some light about what is Aquila Capital or what does it mean to be a financial investor. So basically, we were founded in 2001, Aquila Capital. We currently manage roughly 7 billion euro on behalf of our institutional investors. And I will come to that later. What does it mean on behalf of institutional investors? We were founded by Roman Rosnembroich and Dieter Rentsch, two individuals who still run and manage the company. So we are independent from a larger financial institution. We are regulated and supervised by two authorities, the German BaFin, which is the financial authority, and the Luxembourg CSSF. And we do have some 200 plus employees located in various offices around the world. So what does it mean to be a financial investor? At the end of the day, we are also a service provider. We are investing on behalf of our investors. And who are the investors behind our investors? In Aquila's case, it is 20%, we call it wholesale. That's actually private investors in funds, or small professional investors in funds, but the bulk part is institutional investors, 80% institutional investors. And by institutional investors, we basically mean insurance companies, pension schemes, and so on and so forth. So those people basically who are managing your money and investing your money. So next time you're blaming greedy financial investors, be sure that it's maybe not partially you you're blaming, because at the end of the day, that's how it is. That's the big deep pockets are insurance companies and pension schemes, and then again they need specialized investment managers who are specialized in their specific area of investment. And that is then Aquila Capital. We are talking today, no surprise, about wind. Just to give you a feeling, we are very serious about investing in renewable energy. That is actually one of our core pillars at Aquila Capital. So this is how our portfolio is spread across Europe. We currently manage some 3 gigawatts of nameplate generation spread across hydropower, solar PV, and of course onshore wind. That's roughly 400 megawatts of hydropower, 700 something megawatts of wind, 700 of solar PV, and some 1.6 gigawatts of wind. So we are serious about the renewables, and I was introduced as a German asset manager. As a matter of fact, Aquila Capital, we consider ourselves as being a European asset manager. We also run offices in, for example, Oslo. I'm still fighting for an office in Stockholm. And what is quite funny is that actually the Nordic region, which can be seen here, so Sweden, Finland, Denmark, and Norway, is the biggest, is actually the biggest investment destination by region for us. So Germany only comes second, then the US, and then France. So we are in the Nordics to stay. It is one of the regions of our main interest, and we are here since quite a while, and we are of course dependent on good and reliable partners, and this is Aquila Capital's track record of investing in renewables in the Nordics. That's hydro that started in 2014, and actually I had the pleasure to meet the gentleman at Eolus the first time in 2014, where we have acquired a nice portfolio of 4 wind farms, the Atlantic portfolio, totaling 6.1 megawatts. That was in 2014. I think we signed the deal around Christmas. It's always around Christmas. That will be. So my first son was born during this deal, and I was on my computer next to the child bed. My wife loved it. But it's a very nice deal. We are very happy about the performance, apparently a high quality asset. Then we kept on investing. This one is in Norway. I, by the way, was lucky enough to be in charge for most of all of this transaction except for this Danish wind farm. So we kept on investing in Norway, operational wind farm, and continued our journey in 2016. This nice asset was our own development, and that was Christmas 2000 and no, that was not Christmas. That was in spring 2017. That was where my wife gave my second son birth. So I was on my laptop next to the child bed for this deal. That one was my Christmas 2015. And these ones were my Christmas 2017, and also Per's and Marcus' Christmas 2017. Very nice transaction. So what you can see is that we've done repeatable deals with Eolus. Why have we done that? It's basically we as an institutional investor, we always need to be competitive in terms of our cost of capital. On the other hand, it is of course helpful to know that you do have to know, first of all, that you would get a quality asset, and second, that you do have a reliable and knowledgeable partner on the other side, and reasonable partner at the other side of the desk. And believe me, it is always a challenge to land a deal, but at the end of the day, you need to have some mutual trust in order to go that journey. So these are some case studies. That was a transaction I'm particularly proud of. That's Kraktorp. Actually, so this is not the official name. We don't want to evaluate some intellectual property. But since we always met in Malmö, we called it Big Zlatan. That's a very nice deal. We signed that one on the 23rd of December 2017, I think at 3 o'clock in the morning, after 7 hours of negotiations. And that was exhausting, but it was worth it. And again, it's always helpful to know that your partner you're negotiating with, and it is obvious we wanna get those assets as cheap as possible. The Eolus guys want to get the highest price as possible, and at the end of the day, a deal is happening when both parties are almost satisfied. So yeah, we have to pay quite a price for those assets. On the other hand, we know that we are getting quality for it. That's a good example. So a good example that's part of the Eolus cluster in Sundsvall with a high capacity factor. We arranged together with Eolus a long-term PPA with Vattenfall. We secured a very competitive financing with the Dutch Rabobank and Danish EKF. And it's simply a very nice. This is a wind farm. How wind farm is supposed to be in the Nordics. In particular, of course, this capacity factor is really good. We do have long-term contracted revenue. This is what every financial investor is looking for, and I will come back to it later. We do have O&M agreement long-term with Vestas with a high availability guarantee. Eolus is about to construct this asset, so they did not only the development, they are also the EPC provider constructing this wind farm. And as far as I'm correctly informed, I should know very correctly, but my team members will. So the COD will be in the fourth quarter 2019. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. So we are on track. And Eolus is also providing long-term technical and commercial management for this asset. And I think this is also a nice example of what the value chain, what the wind industry means in terms of value creation for the domestic economy. It's it's Vattenfall. So it is value creational. But we did not only sign at that 23rd of December, we did not only sign Big Zlatan, we also signed Little Zlatan. That's a slightly different structure. That's also part of the Sundsvall cluster. It's basically the same characteristic, very strong assets. We are very proud of it, very nice one. It comes with a price, but we are convinced that it is definitely worth it. So far so good. Key message is Aquila Capital has invested quite a lot in the Nordics, more than 1 gigawatt since 2014. That equals something above 1 billion euro invested in the Nordic region. But why did we do it? And to be quite frank, the Nordic region is a market we will keep on investing, but it's not the easiest market. So it is a challenging market, and in many aspects, the Nordic market is a front runner in terms of new developments. What we will see in other markets will follow, such as Germany, France, other markets where renewables are still heavily subsidized. The Nordic markets are a challenge because it is basically a merchant market. And so I want to also shed some light about the Nordics. These are all the positive aspects, but I would want to also point out some of the challenges an financial investor like us is facing in the Nordic markets. So this is just a snapshot and an outdated snapshot from Q2 2018, but I think it is it gives a good picture about the level of electricity prices, the usual level of electricity prices in Europe. And as you can see, the Nordic region is notoriously, the prices for electricity are notoriously low because of actually the fact that Norway basically covers roughly 96% of their electricity consumption by hydro, which is a cheap source of electricity. Sweden is in the region of 40%, and the other 40% are nuclear power. So the Nordic regions has traditionally one of the, or actually the lowest electricity costs prices in Europe, which makes it, of course, challenging to create a wind farm and to make a wind farm economically viable. So you really need to be professional, and you need to put the right emphasis on optimizing the levelized cost of energy. So what is levelized cost of energy? That's basically to build this wind farm in a way that you can offer a competitive product, power, which can cope with relatively low power prices. And that is a challenge, and that is something not every developer can do. So there is a pretty high market entrance barrier for the Nordics, as I believe, for other developers. Because those guys who can be successful here, they basically, if you can make it here, you can make it everywhere. Yeah, that's sort of true. And this is why they are sort of pioneering the European market, because Germany, we were spoiled for years and years and years with a high feed-in tariff market. So what happens if you are spoiled, if you're protected, if you're shielded away from merchant risk? You're getting lazy. You're not putting the right emphasis on optimizing your levelized cost of energy. And the same goes for France. Okay, Spain is a particular case. They did retroactive cuts, so that has the effect of a nuclear bomb if a government does it, if a government is not reliable. But that's the bottom line. So that is of course a challenge. A challenge is how to optimize your levelized cost of energy. And I have spoken about it already. So this is, so please ignore the UK in the middle. I was just unable to just get it out of this of this slide. So what is of interest? So just for example, so this is how your revenues look like. The net present value of your revenues look like if you invest in a wind farm in Germany. So 90% is hedged for 90 years. This is how your revenues look like in the Nordics if you have not entered into a PPA. So PPA apparently becomes crucial. So 85% is merchant, and 15% comes from a beast called Elterds, which are basically also merchant. So apparently, it is much more complicated, and you need a much higher degree of sophistication to create and structure a viable investment case in the Nordics compared to Germany. In Germany, basically, you just have to build the wind farm. You don't need to make up your mind about prices, about merchant risk. So that is the challenge, the main challenge in the Nordics. And there are some other challenges. So what you need in the Nordics is PPAs. PPA procurement is a challenge. You need to be very professional in procuring PPAs. Eolus is good in procuring PPAs, but that is, of course, posing additional complexity in a transaction. I do understand that Frederick has spoken already about the Elstert situation. So yes, this is a challenge for us as investors, and we clearly demand and hope that Swedish politicians will not listen to what the energy authority have proposed and be reasonable. What will, in my eyes, become a challenge in the future is the availability of large-scale developments, because the sheer amount of applications and permits for new build-outs and new project developments in the Nordics have dropped. And what is a challenge for us, and that sort of goes hand in hand, what is a challenge for us is what we call cannibalization effects. So wind is an intermittent resource of energy, and if the wind is blowing, all wind turbines in that region are producing. This means that this has a price effect. So this is something which is, I mean, you can handle all those problems, don't get me wrong. We are handling those problems, but this is why the Nordics are no market for beginners. I think this applies to the developers, but also to the investors. So that's the challenges. But why will we keep on focusing on the Nordics? And that's a bit giving you an insight. That is our strategy. These are our core markets where we will keep on focusing. Scandinavia is one region which will remain one of our main point of interest for new investments. Please ignore what is written here because it sort of anticipates my conclusions. Ignore it. Same goes for the Iberian Peninsula. That's a completely different case, but that's also a very interesting topic. And we are currently looking into other markets, in particular in Eastern Europe, where there are relatively, and also Italy, where there are relatively high power prices. Let's say, the government of Poland doesn't make it easy for an institutional investor to create trust in the country's ability to stick to their promises. On the other hand, the power price is so high in Poland that that changes sort of the paradigm. If you just have a power plant which can produce on low levelized cost of energy. Wow, that goes fast. So the Nordics will remain one of our main investment destinations going forward, and despite of those challenges we are very well aware of, and I would like to give you some more information about why we still like the Nordics compared to Germany, where we have seen before that everything is sort of covered, you don't have emergent risk, everything is fine. Basically, if you compare the countries in terms of rating, and they are all very stable, all AAA countries. So that is very much comparable. Currency, we are a euro investor apparently. We are a euro investor, but the good thing about Sweden and Norway, I will focus on Sweden for given reasons here in Sweden, so is that you can actually structure your investment as pure euro investments, because your PPA will be denominated in euro, your capex will be denominated in euro, your O&M agreement will be denominated in euro, and there will be some operational expense positions in local currency, but you can also, for example, trade elsewhere or parts of your power sales in local currency. So you basically do have a natural hedge, which is a huge advantage. So you can structure assets in the Nordics as a euro investment. Maturity, these are outdated numbers, but I think we don't need. We all agree that we are in mature, we are talking about mature renewables markets. And now we are coming to the difference, and that is the wind regime. So in Sweden, we are talking about capacity factors between 30 and 40%. I've mentioned Big Zlatan, where we are almost at 40%. That is an enormous. So what does a capacity factor mean, by the way? Capacity factor is a very good indicator for the efficiency of your power plant. That basically means that you are producing power at 40% of the time, and your capacity compared to 100%, which would be, yeah, capacity factor is a good indicator for the efficiency of your power plant. Let's stick with this. And apparently wind speeds are a main contributor to high capacity factors. And if you compare this with average German capacity factors, where you can be lucky with a capacity factor of 25%, that also shows that we will have very low levelized cost of energy, and this is what it is all about. Energy yield assessments, a huge advantage in the Nordics. What you usually would get in Germany is a reference data-based energy yield assessment, and it just has turned out that those reference data-based energy assessments are not very reliable compared to site-specific data measurement. I mean, these are huge countries, sparsely populated, while this is a relatively small country, but densely populated. So what at least professional developers like Eolus are doing is they are doing long-term wind measurements on site. And this gives you much more, this is why your energy yield assessments, so impacting the top line of your financial model, are much more reliable. CapEx, still relatively high in Germany, relatively low in Sweden. And this is this is because I still don't understand why my mates in Germany have done it like this. Because you do have box permits in Sweden. That means your permit doesn't say what turbine you need to use. Those turbines, this technology just needs to meet certain criteria. Whilst when you apply for a building permit in Germany, you have to clearly state what turbine type to use. And of course, the turbine supplier knows what is in your permit and also the technology. And now, what is your bargaining position as a developer? It's completely nonsense. I don't know why this is not being changed in Germany. It's probably the wind turbine manufacturer lobby. And you can keep the race open among the turbine supplier in the Nordics. And this leads to the fact that the capex are much lower. We have discussed about the support scheme. The support scheme in Germany is, of course, nice for an investor. A bit tricky at the moment in the Nordics, but at least it's also not that relevant, because what you basically do is you hedge your merchant exposure with PPAs. And the Nordics are the most mature market in terms of PPAs, and that is another very, very big advantage. Debt levels, maybe just to compare it, up to 80% in Germany. That is due to the fact that you don't have a merchant risk in Germany, so banks are very happy to lend against those feed-in or CFD schemes. You're looking to just much less debt in the Nordics, and that is one of the reasons. So if you compare the markets, there are many good arguments why you would like Sweden and could actually favor Sweden over Germany. That's market specifics. The other things, and I won't read through this page, but the other one is that we as Aquila Capital firmly believe that the macroeconomic outlook for wind power in the Nordics is very good, that we will see increasing power prices in the Nordics. That is maybe not a good news for you as a consumer, but at least good for us as a investor, and also maybe good for you as a shareholder of Eolus, if you are, because there are many reasons to believe that power prices will go up in the Nordics. We have discussed about it. So short-time influential of the power price in the Nordics is weather conditions and cost of fossil powers. But in the long run, it will be the development of power demand, apparently. And there you will have a flourishing data center industry in the Nordics, which will become more and more relevant. The Nordic countries are early adopters of e-mobility, and this trend will continue. These are all trends which will increase the demand. Nordic households are basically one of the largest per capita electricity consumers worldwide, I guess. And you are enjoying a fast-growing population, plus 22% in Norway, plus 13% in Sweden by 2050. And that is good for power prices. And on top of this, so that is the demand side, another aspect is the aging of thermal generation capacities. Nuclear in particular, because coal doesn't play a role in the Nordics. But by the way, good news, what I read today is that apparently rumors say that that there will be a phase out of all coal production in Germany by 2038. That means that by 2038, 22 gigawatts of coal power production in Germany will get off the grid. And that's an interesting development because in Germany it's roughly still 30% of coal electricity production that will give a push to power prices, which is again good. And that's hot news. It's probably not in the Swedish media yet. So thermal power generation will also be phased out in Sweden. I am convinced, I mean, I'm aware, of course, that there is no official decision or political decision being made yet that there will be a phase out of Swedish nuclear. But there will be a natural phase out because nuclear power plants, they do have a lifetime expectation of roughly 40 years. So the phase out will begin at the maybe late 2020s. And I'm convinced that no one will build new nuclear power plants in Sweden for the sheer fact that nuclear power is a very expensive technology if you run the numbers correctly, if you think about what to do with the waste in the long run, what to do with the local risk, with the social risk of nuclear power. So no reasonable politician, and I feel, I mean, I'm not Swedish, but I feel that there would also be no support for new build-outs of nuclear power plants. And if so, I mean, we can see it in Finland with this nuclear power plant. I can't pronounce the name. It's Finnish. It's impossible. Sorry, but I think they are delayed for more than 10 years, and the construction took 20 years. So no reasonable person will replace aging nuclear power capacity in Sweden against new nuclear power capacity. So there will be a hole if you bear in mind that is still the nuclear part of the Swedish energy mix. And we are convinced that this will be replaced by wind. For various reasons. I do understand that I need to hurry up a little bit, but this will be replaced by wind and not by solar in the Nordics for obvious reasons. And hence, we are very optimistic. We think that the macroeconomic outlook for the Nordics is intact. We believe in increasing power prices, and this is, of course, not just us. This has been the historical power price development. So what you can see is the low has been in 2015, and since then we went quite a way up. Good for guys like Eolus, good for our existing investments, if you're not hedged, of course. I did some hedges here. They are very bad. Anyway, you know, and this is one of the forecasts. I mean, the future is always a glass bowl, and we need to of course, base our assumptions and our valuation for an investment opportunity based on the future, because we are discounting future cash flows. So we need to base it on something. Beringer is one of the forecasters. There are other ones like SKM, Wattside, Themar, name it. So I'm not saying that Beringer has the truth. They are actually always quite optimistic, but it's just a placeholder for their peers. And as you can see, they are also expecting increasing power markets going forward. And this is actually the real the increase in real prices. So what you would have to do is to inflate it and index it by inflation. That would give it a nice uptick. So fortunately, it's not only us who are optimistic with regards to future power prices in the Nordics, it's also the experts where we are relying on. Frederick from Bodeca Partners has elaborated about the altered spot situation. It goes without saying that we as an investor standing ready to keep on financing the energy transition in the Nordics expect the Swedish government and the Norwegian government to act reasonable, to bear in mind that there is some responsibility for the investors community who invested and put a trust in the country. So let's hope for the best, and let's hope that the proposal of the energy agencies will not be realized one-to-one. That would not be good, to put it in a friendly way. And to summarize it, that is why we like the Nordics as an investor, from an investor point of view, why we will keep on investing in the Nordics, why we stand ready. It is the very competitive levelized cost of energy. Levelized cost of energy, again, is the possibility to produce power and to create and construct a viable power plant which can compete with relatively low market prices. So the Nordics' ability to be a price leader actually in terms of levelized cost of energy in Europe, that is sustainable. This is sustainable, not governmental support. This is sustainable. You need to have a competitive power plant. The fact that if we are talking about the Nordics, we are talking about the most mature PPA market, at least in Europe, maybe actually in the world, though I'm not a US expert, but at least in Europe, this is for sure. We have discussed about the projected increase in wholesale power prices. We all firmly believe in it. It's the environment, economic stability. I mean, we are talking about a AAA country, and that is, of course, different compared to. You have to approach as an investor. You have to approach. If I'm looking into Polish investment opportunities in the Polish market, I do have to make up my mind about completely different aspects when it comes to economic and political stability compared to Sweden. High liquidity in the electricity market. Sweden apparently is part of the Nord Pool spot, which is the most liquid and the biggest electricity exchange in the Nordics, and that will continue going forward. And this gives you, and this will make sure that also, this is of course related, those 2 points. This will make sure that Sweden will stay a very liquid and mature power PPA market. Sweden has an ambitious renewable build-out target. Sweden aims to be carbon-free by 2040. Again, I think this carbon-free will not be achieved by the replacement of old nuclear power plants with new nuclear power plants. It will be achieved by the further build-out of wind. And last but not least, Sweden has a very, very professional, definitely among the leading industries in the wind industry, markets in the wind industry. That goes for developers and EPCs such as Eolus, but also for advisors, financial institutions. This allows you as a professional investor, you are meeting professional people on the other side of the desk, which is a very high value, because this has something to do with transaction certainty, professionalism, reliability, and so on and so forth. That's a big factor. That's a big factor in our considerations as an investor, and that is, by the way, also where the value creation stays in Sweden. That's it from my part. We are looking forward to continue investing, hopefully together with Eolus. That's it from my part. Many thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Ingmar.
Yeah,
as all the previous speakers and the speakers to follow, you will get a thermos mug from Eolus to keep your coffee in when you drive to work or when you drive home with your family back to Germany later this weekend. So thank you for coming here and your very interesting presentation about an investor that invests heavily in the Nordic countries and will continue to do so. And of course, we hope that at least some of those investments will come together with the Eolus. Thank you very much for coming.
Chances are good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.